Uncertainty is one of the most salient factors in human existence. Think about it. The degree to which you are uncertain of certain things will have a direct influence on the kinds of decisions you make, the kinds of choices you make in your life, and will mediate pretty much everything that you have planned. A very basic example might be an entrepreneur, and whether or not he chooses to invest in a certain product or sell a certain product. How certain is he that this will succeed? If he has a sense or an inkling of how likely it will succeed, then he might follow through with the product. If it's a very, very low probability, say 10%, he probably won't. And this holds true for virtually everything in life. It's not just business decisions, personal decisions, life paths, careers, whatever it might be. There's that constant question of what is likely and what is unlikely, what is certain and what is uncertain. Now, of course, the kicker here is that nothing is certain, save for death. And throughout humanity's brief existence, there have always been people who have been keenly aware of this fact, the uncertainty factor, in human life, and all too keen to take advantage of it. I'm talking about people with confidence, so-called con men or con women, hucksters and hoaxsters, people who take advantage not just of the uncertainty of human existence, but of the fear that typically generates, because there's a lot of fear. Because we're never certain of anything, and the one thing we are certain of, that is our death, tends to strike terror in people's hearts, we tend to be afraid of a great many things. So one could argue almost that a certain market niche emerges in this context, whereby certain people of a certain aptitude, if you want to be generous, and I'd be more inclined to say inclination and desire, want to take advantage of this salient factor in life, this factor of uncertainty, because it's a tough sell. It's a tough sell to not have all the answers. It's a lot easier sell, much, much easier sell to say, look, I figure it out. Why don't you come on over here and listen to me, and I'll set you on the right path. This type of person exists in every niche and has always existed. For example, in the early Roman Empire, there were hosts of different religions on offer, all trying to huckster and hoax their way into offering you salvation, approximately around the time Christianity emerged. I wonder if that's a coincidence. In any event, you have all these people running around claiming they saw miracles, claiming that if you pay them and listen to them and offer them your devotion, you will achieve some kind of salvation in the next life. Now, there's a context for this sort of thing. The 2nd century was a pretty miserable time because, in general, living back then, life was short and brutish. There wasn't a lot available in terms of fun, and people generally didn't enjoy their lives. So, of course, the thing that people were huckstering and hoaxing was typically religion, and typically the kind of redemption, salvation story that tends to abound in most religions these days. That was the environment of uncertainty that gave birth to many things, Christianity included. However, different environments produce different types of confidence men, different types of hucksters, different types of hoaxsters. And in the current year, this year of 2020, and in recent years, but arguably this year has really seen the largest, greatest acceleration of this effect, you are much more likely to encounter a new type of guru, a new type of person who calls himself a life coach. Now, not every life coach calls himself a life coach, but the appellation is very apt, and they all tend to follow a certain formula, which is to say, they're aware of the uncertainty of our times, the shift in the economy, the shift in the mating market, the shift of many, many things, and they know how to exploit it. Because, let's be honest, things are not as straightforward as they used to be. Not that they ever were straightforward. There's never been some perfect, pristine era in which our ancestors lived, or even recent ancestors lived, where everything was perfectly planned out. But there was a notion, for example, that if you were the son of a blacksmith, you would be a blacksmith. And if you were the son of a farmer, you would be a farmer, and you would learn to farm. And so these life paths were, to some degree, not always, predetermined by your life circumstances, to which parents you were born, etc., etc. That's less and less so the case. On top of that, the mating market is undoubtedly a lot more difficult than it used to be, and it's not nearly as navigable as it used to be. And so into this void of uncertainty steps the confidence man, the guru, the life coach, the guy who knows where it's at, the guy who's going to tell you what the right path is and what you can do to set yourself on that path. But in order to do so, you need to spend copious amounts of time and money paying attention to exactly what he's saying. Because this is always the genesis of the huckster and the con man, this environment of uncertainty. And depending on what it is, be it the 1st century AD, or in this case, 2020, where nobody knows what the hell they're supposed to do with their lives, you're going to have this pattern repeat itself. Now, it might not be the case that these guys are selling you salvation, at least in the next life, although some of them might, although these types still exist and they always have, but they're selling you salvation in this life. They understand what it means, for example, to be a proper man, or what career is right for you. Take your pick. They always have the answers. The answers are rarely flexible. And one thing you'll notice about these types is that they'll never tell you they don't know something, because that is a sign of weakness. And despite the fact that all human beings are weak, and we all just do not know a vast, vast, vast amount of things, they won't concede that point. And likewise, into this void of uncertainty, many, many young people, specifically men, step foot, and they're lost. They're looking for guidance. And here's the thing. It was different back in the day in a sense. If you needed the guidance as the son of a blacksmith to become a blacksmith, well, you would receive it. And the continuity and reliability of a certain tradition or trade would have been sufficient. And so you would have learnt the means and the methods, and you would have become a blacksmith. And likewise, given the vicissitudes of the current year mating market, things were quite different back then as well. You might have married and mated with a yokel, not a big deal. Were you happy? Well, probably not. I don't think human beings ever were particularly happy. It's human nature to be discontent. But at least there was a semblance of something that you were supposed to do. And so these guys prey on the uncertainty of people, young people, older people, all sorts of people, by providing them with answers. But here's the problem. I agree that these are really uncertain times. Certainly, macroscopically speaking, we have yet to live in as interesting times as we do in the current year. But for this very reason, no one person can possibly know exactly what's right for you. You see, life is difficult. Life is at times challenging. There are many, many patches of misery, and much of life consists of suffering. Now, that's not a very positive message, obviously, but I think it's accurate. But you can't really make a lot of money with that, and you can't do 5-part seminars on something like that. Throughout the years, I've had a lot of guys, younger guys especially, come up to me and ask me, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to think? And what do I always tell them? I don't know. I don't know you. I don't know your circumstances. I don't know what you want. And that's the unfortunate hard truth. And that's that learning what you want in life is a cumulative experience that can take years, if not decades, of sorting things out, of jettisoning one thing and trying the next thing, and then going back to the old thing. And it's a never-ending process. There is rarely, if ever, a one-shoe-size-fits-all solution or a quick fix. And so most of you know my view on advice being the worst vice. The quote-unquote advice I would offer to any human being is that you should not necessarily trust other people about the generalities of your own life and what you should do with it. I don't know what's best for you. And that's the whole point. We're always in a process of discovery of what's functional and what's not. And the problem, in addition to the lack of ethics regarding this notion of gurus and life coaches and PUAs and this sort, is that at the end of the day, it's very rare that you, say, as a young man, might go to some fancy seminar having spent $2,000 and have really picked up true pearls of wisdom. Because in addition to the exploitative nature of these people, a lot of them suffer from the unfortunate vice of hubris. They actually believe that they know what's best for you. Because, yes, there's some thespians amongst them. I'm thinking of one in particular. But most of these guys are really convinced of themselves. And that's why they're so suitable to being confidence men. They are convinced and confident in their own abilities, whether it's accurate or not, and maybe for all I know they're truly accomplished in their own lives, but they're convinced that they can transfer that onto you. One, we have the problem that I've discussed many times, the problem of self-extrapolation. And two, I would argue in the current year scenario of uncertainty, very, very few people have an inkling of what's going on and how things are going to end up. We have no idea, for example, what 2021 is going to be like. We have been, in many ways, some of us, shaken to our core by certain events in 2020. We have no idea what's going to happen next year or the year thereafter. Things are shifting and changing far too rapidly to keep track of it all, which is why ideally you should be on guard against these one-shoe-size-fits-all prescriptions that are offered by gurus, life coaches, and confidence men. I can assure you, although they might have some competence and some expertise in some narrow niche of life, it's rarely, if ever, applicable to your own personal dilemma. And why? Because you come from a different background, you come from a different environment, you have different genes, etc., etc. And on a final note, a lot of these types who tend to uphold quote-unquote traditional values, whatever that means these days, will tell you that doing your own thing on your own terms, something along the lines of MGTOW, but it needn't be that, is irresponsible. That the responsible thing to do is to follow time-honored traditions, which, by the way, are no longer functional and have not been for quite some time, and that's what you need to do. But herein lies the rub. The rub lies in the fact that the difficult thing, the responsible thing, is to concede your ignorance about yourself and your life, and to concede your ignorance about the world, and do your very darndest, your very best to try to navigate that complexity and try to fill that void of ignorance with knowledge. The responsibility of living on your own terms and acknowledging that you're never going to know everything, that you're always going to learn, that you're going to falter, that you're going to fail, and that you have to get back up, and the process never ends until you drop dead. That's true responsibility, not falling to your knees in reverent worship of some guru who believes that he has the answers for you, and you likewise paying him homage in the process. That's the difference. Because that's the sort of responsibility most human beings are terrified of assuming. That is the responsibility of the unknown, of the uncertain, pressing forward despite all of that, and living with all these things, living with the fear, living with the anxiety, living with the uncertain, and in doing so refusing to bow down to the absurd pretenses of certainty offered by others, however many there might be of such people. Because the only thing that does is anesthetize your mind and your life. And at some point in time, you're going to snap out of it and wonder what the hell happened. Well, I'm telling you what happened. So there may very well be answers out there, but I don't think I have them, and it's going to take a long, long time for you to discover them. Your whole life in all likelihood. That's true responsibility, facing the fear of uncertainty, facing the unknown, and accepting that that will always be there. Anyway, gentlemen, I hope you have a pleasant weekend. Please do hit the like button and share and subscribe if you've not. In addition, please hit the bell icon, as not everyone's being notified as to the emergence of my videos. And as always, may the gods watch over you. And if I'm still alive, I'll check you out later. Bye-bye. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, please consider making a donation or becoming a patron. Thanks for watching.